Up next, Authentically Detroit sits down with Kevin Davidson, Director of Design and Fabrication at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History, to discuss the 40th Annual African World Festival, a milestone he shares with the festival as a 40-year employee of the Wright Museum who also worked the first festival in 1983. But first, this week's hot takes from Bridge Detroit and the Detroit News. Feds charge Detroit man in apparent strangulation death of Winter Cole Smith, and Hill Harper declares Senate run in Michigan, challenging Slotkin. Keep it locked. Authentically Detroit starts after these messages.
Hey, it's Stephen Henderson from WDET and Bridge Detroit. If you love listening to Orlando and Donna's incisive interviews and conversations on the Authentically Detroit podcast, I hope you'll also listen to the podcast I host, Detroit Today, from WDET on Detroit's NPR station. Detroit Today is a daily podcast where I talk with community leaders, elected officials, and residents of Detroit, the region, and the state about politics and the values that animate our communities. Listen to Detroit Today every day on your favorite podcast app.
Hey, y'all, it's Orlando. We just want to let you know that the views and opinions expressed during this podcast episode are those of the co-hosts and guests and not their sponsoring institutions. Now, let's start the show.
Hello, Detroit and the world. Welcome to another episode of Authentically Detroit, broadcasting live from the Cass Corridor at the WDET studios. We are a content partner to BridgeDetroit.com. I'm Orlando Bailey.
And I'm Donna Davidson.
Thank you for listening in and supporting our efforts to build a platform of authentic voices for real people in the city of Detroit. We want you to like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on all platforms. Donna and I are joined today by a very special guest, Kevin Davidson, Director of Design and Fabrication at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History, is joining us to discuss this weekend's African World Festival down at Hart Plaza and his contributions to the festival over 4 decades. Kevin, welcome back to Authentically Detroit.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
We're happy to have you. So, all right. It's Monday. We are back from a week where a lot of people were on vacation and took some time off. How is this blessed day finding each of you? Donna, how you doing?
Well, we did go to Keith Ellison's book signing yesterday. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, Kevin is also my husband.
Everybody know that, though.
Some say that it might be up there with some of the other accomplishments. So I'm just joking. Okay.
We need to make that a part of his bio. And the husband of Donna Davidson, Kevin Davidson.
Okay, you can put that in mind too. Kevin's wife, okay? It goes both ways.
Lead accomplishment.
Yes.
I love it.
We did go to Keith's book signing yesterday, and it was amazing just seeing so many people line up to honor Keith. Keith has been on the national scene for some time now. In 2006, he was the first Muslim elected to Congress, and he was the first person elected statewide to represent Minnesota. He ran for the DNC chair, the Democratic National Committee chair in 2016.
16 or 17, something like that, yeah.
I think it was in December of 2016, but it could have been 17. And he lost to Tom Perez, but he was also made vice chair, which is a position created for him. So he's gotten some attention.
Super dope.
Used to be on Fox News arguing with folks all the time, as well as on CNN or MSNBC. But what really
grabbed... he interviewed with us last week. He can check off Authentically Detroit on his list of media interviews.
We are resume builders over here, right? And so his greatest accomplishment. So the thing is, though, but what really grabbed people's attention when he came to town this time was him actually successfully prosecuting Derek Chauvin, which meant a lot to people. And then he wrote a book about it. So the book sold out. And you know what?
Shout out to Source Booksellers, Miss Janet and Allison.
Miss Janet and Allison. They were there until the very end. It was very sweet. But to see so many people purchasing books, because we're not buying books like we used to, but I think
which is a travesty. I'm buying books.
I shouldn't
think
say
I'm the only one keeping source in business.
And me. Oh, listen, I'm buying so many books, it's ridiculous. But I think one day I'll have time to read these books that I buy. But I'm really good at first chapters, and but no, it was just a great event. We had our grandson Maverick with us over the weekend, and so if I'm a little sleepy today, that's because, you know what? Parenting infants is for young people.
That's right.
No, it was so funny because before we went on air, Donna and Kevin were sort of going back and forth like the young parents do about who got up with Maverick and stayed up with Maverick. Kevin seems to think he got up along with you and was up for a while, but
he
you
watched
say
me
something
get
different.
up. He did watch me get up, and he was like, "Wow, that's really sad."
You know what? I woke up. I didn't actually get up. She got up. Walked around with him. I'm only called in, when it reaches crisis level, and he's crying, and he won't stop.
Yeah, Kevin.
That's when I stepped in.
Kevin is the baby whisperer. No lie. We were there yesterday, and so we were trying to serve ourselves food at Brian's house afterwards. And this lady said, "Well, can I hold him while you're fixing your plate?" And I handed him to her, and he looked at me like, "You've lost your mind." And he started screaming like his life was at risk. And so I took him back, and he's looking at me like, we're not friends anymore. So I called the baby whisperer. And when Kevin picked him up, he immediately stopped.
He's a baby whisperer. He's also a human whisperer. I mean, everybody just responds differently to Kevin. Like the energy that you give off is so calming, is so warm that people have to acquiesce.
Oh, thank you.
And that's what that's James Heath was there, and his wife said, "Oh, the baby's a good judge of character because he can just tell what a calm person. You've never even met this man before. How do you know he's calm?" But you can tell that, and it's a great thing about Kevin that Maverick appreciates and others appreciate. But yes, anyway.
So Kevin is rested. How are you?
Oh. I'm doing pretty good. I got more rest than Donna for sure.
Good. Well, it's good to see you, Kevin.
Yeah,
always. It's always good to see you.
How was your weekend?
My weekend is a blur. It's always a blur. Okay, so yesterday I cooked for myself. The after church nap was really cool. And Saturday, what was Saturday? Saturday I hung out with my cousin Tim at the mall and got to eat, and it was a good family time on Saturday. TED, as in TED Talks, they're in town this week.
I was going to ask you what that badge was.
Yeah, I just came from there. I had the privilege of being serving as an MC this week for the TED countdown session, right? And when you're preparing with them, they ask you, have you ever been in contact with TED? I'm like, yeah, plenty of times. And what TED lets you know is that you've been in contact with TEDx. This is TED, like Al Gore's coming, Al work. I'm like, oh, okay. So there's like a caste system hierarchy in TED. Fun. It's going to be something.
You put me in mind of Jay-Z.
Yeah.
I'm not a businessman. I'm a
businessman.
Because you are your own brand, Orlando. You are like the Orlando P. Bailey brand. You even have a website with your name on it. But you have, some people have that, and it's like, why do you even have that? Because nobody cares. But you have lived up to that website. You are doing everything in the city of Detroit. I'm so proud of you.
Well, I'm really happy to be tapped to represent Detroit in this way. On an international stage. And what I can promise you I'll bring is our Detroit authenticity, our character, and make the city proud, right? That's
every
the
time
goal.
you make us proud every time.
That's the hope. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. All right, y'all. We could talk forever, but it's time for Hot Takes. We'll run down some of the week's top headlines in the city of Detroit. For Hot Takes, the feds charged Detroit man in apparent strangulation death of Winter Cole Smith. So I'm going to try to get through this without crying because this one hit me in a way that I'm sure it hit so many people. Federal authorities have charged a Detroit man accused in the abduction and death of 2-year-old Winter Cole Smith. Rashid Malik Trice, 26 years old, is charged in a criminal complaint with kidnapping a minor and kidnapping resulting in death, according to a Friday statement by Mark Totten, U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Michigan. According to the complaint, authorities say Winter appeared to be strangled with a pink cell phone charging cord, recovered with her body this week in an alley on Detroit's east side. A final medical examiner's report on the cause of death remains pending. Trice is accused of first stabbing and assaulting the toddler's 22-year-old grandmother in Lansing on July 2nd and then taking off with Winter, sparking an Amber Alert. Trice and the victim share a 1-year-old son who was unharmed. Trice was apprehended, and the Chevrolet Impala he'd been driving was recovered on July 3rd, but Winter remained missing. Her body was found on the evening of July 5th. Quote, the allegations in this case are heart-wrenching, end quote, Totten said in a Friday statement. My thoughts are very much with Winter's family as we are all praying for her safe return home. If convicted of kidnapping resulting in death, Trice faces life in prison. The offense is also death penalty eligible, the U.S. Attorney's Office noted in a Friday news release. The kidnapping of a minor offense carries a penalty of 20 years to life in prison. Such a sad story all the way around. And our thoughts and prayers go out to Winter's family and her mother, who is still recovering. Donna, what say you?
Oh, I mean, this is tragic in so many ways. It is an extension of a pattern of spousal abuse that ended up being, in a lot of spousal abuse situations, also endanger minor children. But this is a man who this woman had broken up with. And he wouldn't go away. And he ended up killing her child, probably in an attempt to punish her out of some sickness that had been around. And, you know, he has a track record and a history of violent behavior. We've got to do a better job of removing people like that from access to innocent women and children. It happens so often. But this one struck us particularly hard in the same way that the nurse who was kidnapped from Detroit Receiving Hospital struck us, because we were made aware of the missing situation, the kidnapping. And it's almost like we all followed in real time this manhunt that resulted first in the death of a nurse and then the tragic death of a 2-year-old child. By predators. So, of course, I have so many questions about this. Like, what are we doing to protect women and children from predatory men? And most often that's who is predatory in our community. And then also, what are we doing to stop the creation of predators in our midst? What is happening to little boys? I look at our grandson this week, and we have 2 grandsons. We have an 11-year-old grandson, both kind and loving kids. And that's how we come into this world. And then somehow between birth and now, this man evolved into a predator
at 26,
at 26 years old. And so the tragedy all around, if there was anybody who loved him, now you loved a monster, and that's gotta hurt. But certainly, first of all, the mother and the little brother and her family members. How do we protect them? How many women, and we've been talking about this at ECN lately, how many women have been victims of domestic violence, and how many children have been endangered by domestic violence? Sometimes there's violence that's targeting children, but this one seemed to get the mother and the child all together. So it's one of those things where I think we can't just feel sad and call him a monster and throw him away and even execute him, because it's not going to bring Winter back. We have to think through, what are we going to do to prevent things like this from happening again and again and again and again and again, breaking people's hearts all of the time.
It is. And, you know, just I think about that little boy that is his son, right? And the world that he's going to grow up in. And I think about how this young woman, 22 years old, this mother, is going to have to pick up the pieces of her life and continue to raise this son that she shares with, as you said, this monster. I mean, it's just a tragic situation. Kevin, what say you?
You know, I think that our young women in our community, have been victimized so often by these stalkers and predatory behaviors from these boyfriends and husbands and what have you. And I think that it's critical at this point to make sure that these young ladies, these women have information in their hands to arm themselves with, because there's a lot of information that women don't have when they need to protect themselves from predators and from, stalkers, that you don't find out until, you're in the situation and somebody shares the information with you, and I've gone through it. So it was just surprising to me how many resources are available to help women, before it gets to the point, where, something tragic happens,
I want to remind everybody that we had, a similar conversation to this, not even a couple months ago, with a dynamic woman here in the city of Detroit, Shatara Heath. If you're looking for resources, that episode is filled with so many resource gaps that Shatara herself is even feeling for women who find themselves in this kind of situation. I think the episode title is called Strategic Escape. And so encourage our listeners to go back and revisit that.
It makes me also think of Kalima Johnson.
Yeah.
The executive director of the Sasha Center, where she really helps people who are survivors of domestic violence and rape. But she also has a practice that assists men who are damaged predators to get their lives together. And she and I had an exchange not long ago. We should probably get her on Authentically Detroit to have this conversation, because, this is somebody's child who turns into this monster. And it's not inevitable. I mean, there's a lot of times people say, don't make excuses, I'm not. But what I'm saying is, if we can stop reproducing these monsters, we can protect women and children more effectively. There's some damage that's being done along the lines within our families. The other thing I'd like to say is, people, stop blaming mothers when men abuse. Stop blaming women and saying, what did you do? You were a fool for getting with him. Women don't fall in love with abusers. Women fall in love with men, usually, who are treating them well. You don't become aware that they're abusers until you are well into the relationship. A lot of them are very good at masking their behavior. And as a woman who came out of a domestic violence situation, blaming yourself can keep you trapped inside of that relationship, because you don't want to acknowledge the truth. You don't want anybody to know the truth, because they will look at you differently. But when you get to the point where you understand, I am not responsible for somebody else's behavior, that's the most liberating thing in the world. So I hope every woman who's hearing this will say to themselves, if they are not, I free myself from shame. And shame on anybody who tries to shame a woman who herself was stabbed and who lost her 2-year-old daughter. She's got to feel broken right now, and she will spend enough time blaming herself. I think we need to put our arms around women who have been harmed collectively. And again, we need to figure out what's going on inside of our community where so many women and girls are being hurt. I don't want to say this because sometimes people don't like these types of statistics, but Black women are more likely to be killed in domestic violence situations than any other women in America. Everybody can be abused, but we're more likely to die. And we've got to ask ourselves, what's happening here? Is our community just more fragile because of centuries of racism and disrespect? What's happening when you have mass incarceration and you take so many people out of homes, and you're raising children in foster care homes, and you're raising them in places where nobody's loving them, where you're going into juvenile justice spaces where you are raped as children and other things are happening to you? There are harms that are being perpetuated on little kids that change them from the beautiful beings they were born to be. System-wide harms that change them from the beautiful beings they were born to be into broken beings that break other people. Because, that saying, hurt people. Right. And so I'm not trying to humanize this guy. He doesn't deserve much. It's hard for me not to say whatever, but at the same time, he began as a human being. he began as a person who had needs, and a lot of times people's needs are unmet. And so I just call upon all of us to think through the harm that we know is being perpetrated on children. If you've ever worked in schools, if you've ever worked with small kids, you can see the difference between those kids and others.
Say something.
You can see kids who are struggling from the time they're little and they're not getting the help that they need, and you see them hurt and they act out in school and you call them disciplinary problems, so nobody's looking at their well-being. And I say this often, but I'm going to say it one more time. Right now, we have 2 parents who are being prosecuted for contributing to the predatory behavior of their son. The Crumbleys are contributing to the killing behavior of Ethan Crumbly. We hold them accountable for neglect. We hold them accountable for not getting him psychological care. We hold them accountable for many things, including also getting him a gun and not being responsive when we knew that he was a danger to himself and others. Well, who are we holding accountable to the tens of thousands of children in our community who this is happening to on a regular basis, and the community just turns the other way? And you and I both know, Orlando, children who are being raised by people who are not their parents because their parents are serving life sentences in prison. And so we have to have systems that can fill in the gap. And it's something that I've always been committed to, working with children and trying to help make sure they get on the right path. And so I hold him accountable. This predator needs to be held accountable, but also socially, we need to begin holding ourselves accountable for loving little kids.
And, prayers to the family, but also prayers to the city. The city is shaken by this story right now. Listen, we're going to
that little girl grew up in Lansing, right? So people keep on describing this as a Detroit thing. She ended up here, but she grew up in Lansing. This is a national phenomenon.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about Hill Harper, the actor, and his run for the United States Senate representing Michigan. More Authentically Detroit after this.
Founded in 2021, the Stoudemire is a membership-based community recreation and wellness center centrally located on the east side of Detroit. Membership in the Stoudemire is available on a sliding scale for up to $20 per year or 20 hours of volunteer time. The Stoudemire offers art, dance, and fitness classes, community meetings and events, resource fairs, pop-up events, the neighborhood tech hub, and more. Members who are residents of the east side have access to exclusive services in the Wellness Network. Join today and live well, play well, be well. Visit ecndetroit.org.
Bridge Detroit is your news and engagement platform that is telling the stories of Detroiters rooted by community priorities. Started in 2020 by Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Stephen Henderson, the newsroom has already established its footing as the go-to source for hyper-local perspectives that ask the hard questions, brings accountability, and searches out real solutions. It's free to become a member of this award-winning news organization. Visit bridgedetroit.com today to sign up to receive the news delivered right to your inbox. Bridge Detroit, by Detroiters, for Detroiters.
Welcome back to Authentically Detroit, and we are here with Kevin Davidson, Director of Design and Fabrication at the Charles H. Wright Museum for African American History. Also on his resume is that he is the husband of Donna Davidson. Before we went on break, we teased this story. Hill Harper declares Senate run in Michigan, challenging Alyssa Slotkin, who's already declared her nomination. Actor Hill Harper is officially running for the Democratic nomination for U.S. Senate in Michigan, posing a progressive challenge to frontrunner U.S. Representative Alyssa Slotkin. Quote, "We're in a state where I think the triple blue leadership in Lansing has done really hard work moving the state forward. But in Washington, D.C., it's still broken. And folks feel like it's still broken. And I'm one of them," Harper told the Detroit News. "Without energized, bold leadership in the U.S. Senate, our state will continue to be held back from achieving its full potential. We deserve a better brand of politics than politics as usual. And that's why I'm running for the U.S. Senate." The Iowa native owns the Roasting Plant Coffee Shop on Woodward Avenue downtown and says he moved to Detroit in 2018 after buying the historic Charles T. Fisher Mansion in the city's Boston Edison neighborhood. Harper says the Senate needs a richness of diversity, including life experience, and that he'd help fill that void. As an example, if I'm elected to the U.S. Senate, I will be the only U.S. senator who is a current dues-paying card-carrying union member. If I'm elected to the U.S. Senate, I will be one of very few small business owners in the U.S. Senate, and I believe the only Democrat, Harper said. Harper is a member of the Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, or SAG-AFTRA, and a union that represents actors. Also, only 3 black men currently serve in the U.S. Senate. Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey, he's a Democrat. Raphael Warnock, he's a Democrat from Georgia. And Tim Scott, who's a Republican from South Carolina. There are no black women in the Senate. The quote says this: there's a high degree of frustration by a lot of Democrats, not just African-American Democrats in Michigan, that for the first time in 57 years, Michigan does not have a black Democratic representative in Congress. And that is going backwards, Harper said. I think that folks want to see real people-powered representation over big donor establishment representation. Harper, who's 57, has never run for public office before. Harper's resume includes U.S. Marine Corps officer candidate school in 1986 and degrees from Brown University and Harvard Law. The extent of his political involvement is not clear, though he campaigned for President Barack Obama in Iowa and later served on Obama's cancer panel. He also was involved in the One Fair Wage campaign in Michigan. In addition to the roasting plant, he's the founder and chairman of Black Wall Street Holdings Incorporated, which launched a fintech, which means a financial technology application. He co-owns the International House Hotel in New Orleans and owns commercial and real estate properties in Detroit, Los Angeles, Newark, New Jersey, according to his cover letter. Donna, what say you?
A friend a few years ago told me that some people run for office because they want to be something or be somebody, and some people run for office because they want to do something. I don't know what he wants to do other than be a black man with a business degree. What is his intent in representing the state of Michigan? I think it's important to understand why somebody's running for office other than I think I have the right resume and pedigree and I just believe this is what the people want. I'm not certain that he knows what the people want, and I would encourage him and every other candidate to hang out in the hood and find out what the people want.
Let me tell you what he said. Can I read to you what he said? He says, "Hi, it's Hill Harper, and I'm excited to announce my campaign for U.S. Senate in Michigan." He says, "I'm not a politician, but when I see what D.C. is delivering for special interests instead of everyday people, it's clear we need a system overhaul in Washington, and that means we need representation who will get money out of politics and make our government work for more people." He says, "As an activist, a single father, and an owner of a small business in Detroit, I understand the pressure Michiganders are facing right now. We pay 14 times more for a vial of insulin than our neighbors to the north. We're 49th in the nation in growth. We rank 41st in the nation for teacher pay. In the last 3 years, more small businesses closed their doors for good here than any other state. I believe that our government should work for the people, be a force for good, and protect our freedoms, not take them away. But that won't happen if we keep electing the same career politicians who are only interested in maintaining the status quo." And that's what this campaign is all about. Fighting for the future of all of our communities and our democracy. As a political outsider, I'm accountable to you from day one.
Didn't Donald Trump run on the same?
Didn't Rick Snyder run on the same thing too?
That's I'm an outsider. I'm not a politician. Well, I want somebody with a little bit of political expertise because once elected, you're going to have to know how to negotiate, how to represent people. It's interesting to me that these are the talking points that I think people have decided, get politics and money out of. You can't get money out of politics and help people. We need money in housing. We need money in climate change, which he doesn't mention either one of those. He lives in the city of Detroit, and if he doesn't understand what the hood needs, then I don't understand why Detroiters would vote for him. Pamela Pugh is actually running. Also, I believe she's in Saginaw, and she's on the school board in Saginaw as a black woman who is hoping to take that seat. So he's not the only black person who might compete for that seat, but whoever it is, I'm not interested in this generalized kind of stuff where you go hang out with the right people. I saw him yesterday at the book signing for Keith Ellison. He walked in, made a beeline for Keith, talked to him, and left. There was a whole bunch of people he could have been shaking hands with and talking to.
He's normally really good about that. I'll give him credit for that. I don't know what he had on his agenda
I've seen him twice, and he has never walked up to me. I saw him at the museum. Did he talk to you when we saw him at the museum? He walked in. he talked to the important people in the room, and then he left. And so maybe that's because you're important or you're in places where all the people are important. But I'm telling you, I was just one of those little people in the room yesterday, and he just made a beeline for Keith and made it out of there. He has talked to people in the community, and when I walked up to him and I introduced him. I said, you own the Cow's Head building on Mack Avenue. I run the Community Development Corporation that is redeveloping Mack Avenue, and I think it makes sense for us to have some conversations about what you want to do with the building. He said, well, call me. Well, I can call him, but he's running for office, not me. Maybe he should call me when I tell him what I'm doing, and we're right around the block from there. Perhaps he could come to one of our community meetings. Perhaps he could just show up at the Stoudemire, whatever it is. When you run for office, talk to the people in the communities you hope to represent. If you're running as a black man, you can't run a campaign that does not touch on black specific issues. And I also don't hear that from him. And so I'm a little tired of that. I feel as though his campaign is not that much different than our former police chief's campaign. This I'm an outsider, this kind of stuff. I don't trust you. If you don't tell me what you're running for, if you don't tell me specifically other than insulin, what you're going to change, I can't support that.
And he also touts himself as a progressive, and I think this is a different kind of progressivism that he is espousing. One of the things that, sort of get on my nerves around folks who, begin to campaign and seek elective office is, there is a clear, Democratic Party playbook with certain talking points. And I've heard him leverage and use these talking points. But what the Democratic Party habitually fails to understand is that black people are not subscribing to those talk. You know what I mean? I think, there's this conversation right now about preserving democracy. But if you're talking to black folks in the city of Detroit, you're about a decade too late. Right? When we talk about democracy and the stripping of it being beta tested here in the city of Detroit, and now is a Democratic Party talking point, I think that you have, in order to represent Detroit and black people in Detroit specifically, you have to get underneath those layers and look at what is plaguing, what are we highly impacted by. I'm not hearing anybody on the Democratic ticket talk about housing. I'm not hearing, and I'm talking about housing as a human right.
That's right.
I'm talking about housing houseless people, right? I'm not hearing anybody on the Democratic ticket really take seriously the plight of education in our community and the flight of young people leaving in a real way that's not going to solve the mass exodus on part of young people with the automotive industry or economic development, but something that, diversification of economy, educate. And so there's so many, he's really painting, I just want to say this, he's really painting really broad strokes to sort of reach everybody. And I understand as a political strategist that may be something that you have to do. But when you come to the city of Detroit, there has to be some digging into some nuance, some
passion.
Some
How
passion.
about some passion
Yeah.
for our people? It's really interesting because when you look at the problems plaguing Detroit in 2023, and you look at the problems that were plaguing Detroit in 1923, we have a lot of the same problems. We have segregation as a problem. You have housing and overcrowding as a problem. We have slum conditions as a problem. We have police brutality as a problem. We have a lot of the same problems. And Detroit, the difference between 1923 and 2023 is that in 1923, black Detroiters were segregated into a few small areas. In 2023, Detroit is a predominantly black city, which is segregated from the region. And the region, based on law, when you look at school policy, just imagine if everybody had to go to the same schools. Now, Detroit was not required to desegregate its urban school districts with some of the other schools, and therefore you have one school district that is paying one amount per pupil, one school district that has all of this debt, another school district doesn't. People can start school districts without really having to consider the impact. And then you have the school choice movement, which further siphoned money out of public schools in places like the city of Detroit, Flint, Saginaw, Grand Rapids, anywhere you find black people. It's a coincidental thing where black people, where our kids go to school, the money's being siphoned off. So I think, be original. Run for something interesting. You want me to care about you being a black man. Well, I need you to care about the issues that black folks in Detroit are caring about. If not, just run. Don't even bring up the fact that you're a black man.
And the leveraging of after 50 some odd years, we don't have black representation in Congress. It's tired. It's tired,
you
y'all.
know what? Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
I was not privileged to listen to Raphael Warnock when he spoke at the NAACP.
Yeah.
We went to a wedding and I missed it. I love Senator Warnock, but I bet he said more than that. Am I wrong?
Oh, without a doubt.
So don't put yourself on his level unless you can be on that level.
Yeah, yeah. And, I guess I'm one of the important people down. I've had the privilege to, sit next to Hill and, speak with him intimately, and I think he's a dope guy. You know what I mean? I think he's a nice person, but I really would like a 2-on-1 conversation or a 1-on-1 conversation where we really begin to unpack some of the things that he is taking a stand on and how he contends that he is going to run, because this is the conversation that I had with him, a platform that is progressive, because I'm not seeing it.
I'm tired of the words. And this is also not on the job training, okay? I'm not really interested in training somebody how to represent our community. There are people in our community who know how to represent us.
I'm not trying to train them. I want to question him rigorously.
You know what? I might be sick that day. I'm not trying to be rude. I just feel like you got to bring enough to me for me to feel like this is even, I'm offended that people who have money and power and visibility and resources use that to propel themselves to office instead of investing in people in this community who could represent us. If you are concerned about having representation, find somebody who would be a good representative who's already doing work in the community and support them. And by the way, I will never run for public office, so this is not me trying to say support me, because that will never happen. Yeah. But I am saying that there are people who do want to be politicians and do want to be at that level. Find someone and give them their money. You cannot represent people you don't understand.
That's facts.
And the reality is policy is complex. It takes time to learn it. And we have people who know what they're talking about. And so I'm very interested in hearing from people who know what they're talking about, how they plan on changing things. But right now, I am just so cynical when I look at people giving Republican talking points as progressive Democrats. It makes me a little irritated.
Yeah, more on that. And if we get them, hopefully Donna won't be sick that day.
Will.
The Bridge Detroit newsroom has confirmed by a few sources, more than 2, that Detroit has lost a legend and a fighter for justice and equity in the person of JoAnn Watson. There are no words to adequately describe the kind of crusader she has been, the kind of fighter she has been.
Absolutely.
And mentor. I've known JoAnn Watson since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
And
when she was on city council, first of all, Wake Up Detroit, when I worked at Warren Connor in the 90s, JoAnn and I worked together to try to engage in school reform when she was representing the NAACP. When she was at the city council table, I sat across from JoAnn and argued some things, and years later came back and told her, I apologize, I was wrong, and you were right about these things. And have recognized the need for someone like JoAnn Watson to sit at that table. And, we heard this before we even had that conversation about Hill Harper. And that's why I am so impatient with people like him, where you have bright, brilliant lights like JoAnn Watson, who never got a chance to even be considered for that.
right.
You're a person who knew policy backwards and forwards and fought uncompromising battles on behalf of people in the city of Detroit. And somebody who I was proud to know. We were proud to feature her when she came in for a Juneteenth event. JoAnn came to our community.
Our summit one year.
When we had a
keynote.
water summit, she was our keynote speaker. JoAnn, more than anything, she was such a great person. One of the beautiful things she did for me personally was she told me about my grandmother. When she found out who my grandmother was, she sat me down and told me personal stories about my grandmother, and it was such a thoughtful, sweet thing for her to do. She was such a powerful person and such a fighter, but actually such a caring and sweet and kind person when you ever had to interact with her. And so in the spirit of JoAnn Watson, I want to say, wake up, Detroit.
Lead with love.
Lead with love.
That's
but
right.
Wake up, Detroit, and don't fall for anything. We have people depending on us to make the right decisions and to help take care of their unmet needs. And anybody who wants to do that and can bring passion to the table, consider that. I remember I said she was an example. Remember when we had the thing, and I said, you're an example of what we need right now in city council. She's an example of what we need in our elected officials. So,
Rest on. Take your rest. Mama, Reverend JoAnn Watson. We're going to take a quick break, everybody. We'll be right back with Kevin Davidson from the Charles H. Wright Museum for African American History. Stick with us.
Have you always dreamed of being on the airwaves? Well, the Detroit Eastside Engaged Podcast Network, or DEEP for short, is here to make that dream a reality. Located inside the Stoudemire, the DEEP Network offers studio space and production staff to help get your podcast idea off the ground. Doesn't take a whole lot of work to get started. Just visit the Authentically Detroit page at ecn-detroit.org or call Sarah at 313-948-0344.
Founded in 2021, the Stoudemire is a membership-based community recreation and wellness center centrally located on the east side of Detroit. Membership in the Stoudemire is available on a sliding scale for up to $20 per year or 20 hours of volunteer time. The Stoudemire offers art, dance, and fitness classes, community meetings and events, resource fairs, pop-up events, the neighborhood tech hub, and more. Members who are residents of the east side have access to exclusive services in the wellness network. Join today and live well, play well, be well. Visit ecndetroit.org.
Welcome back, everybody. This July, the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History is proud to celebrate the 40th annual African World Festival. The milestone celebration takes place this weekend, July 14th through July 16th at Hart Plaza, and we know JoAnn Watson was a huge supporter and attendee of this event.
Absolutely.
The three-day celebration highlights the beauty, strength, and spirit of the African diaspora. Over 25,000 people are expected to enjoy the headliner acts, stages filled with entertainment, and over 125 vendors with food, clothing, health products, visual arts, live demonstrations, and community resources and information, and much more. The gathering this year will highlight and represent our community and our shared past, present, and future. The Wright Museum team looks forward to exchanging stories and honoring where we've been and where we are going. So, here to talk about the 40th anniversary of the African World Festival is the Wright Museum's Director of Design and Fabrication and 40-year employee, Kevin Davidson. Kevin, thank you for joining us today.
It's my pleasure.
Before we get into the festival, we didn't allow you the opportunity to react to the news that just broke around the passing of Detroit's own Reverend JoAnn Watson.
You know, talking about the festival, you know, just it actually reminds me of JoAnn Watson because, you know, the thing that would stand out is the way she would dress in her African garb, you know, and wear it so proudly, not just during the festival, but, you know, throughout the year. And she was one of those dignitaries that, you know, was always there. We'd call them up and acknowledge them, and they would have words during the festival over the years. But I used to read her column religiously, because I always loved her point of view, you know. And, you know, we've lost an icon, you know, and, you know, she's going to be one of those powerful ancestors that we'll look to as we move forward.
You know, there are a few people, I just want to say this in my life, who have mentored me accidentally, not because they wanted to, but because they did. And it's especially important when somebody shows you the right way to be when you're wrong. And she's one of those people who, you know, corrected me on some things and misperceptions. I had misconceptions because I was young and I thought I knew some things that I didn't. And I looked to her as I got older as somebody who was the exemplar of the right kind of activism. You know what I'm saying? She became the lodestone, the person I want to connect my identity with, you know. And it's so weird because not because of this, but even this year at the festival, I'm planning on wearing some African garb. I've never done that. I feel a little bit self-conscious about it. And Kevin knows this. I have this dress, and so as you talk about that, even in that, and her claiming her identity and really displaying what it means to be a proud Black woman, JoAnn Watson was the mother of Detroit. There's nobody who's like JoAnn Watson to many of us. And, you know, I don't cry on the outside that much, but the tears are there because she meant so much to so many people. And so anyway, we're going to talk about the festival, and I want to leave space for that.
I want to leave space for that too. The council president just released a statement. So the statements are coming in. I'll read this really quickly. The city of Detroit, the nation, and the world lost a true Detroit and civil rights icon. Mother Watson, as we affectionately call her, was a trailblazer, stalwart, and one-of-a-kind freedom fighter who loved people and the Lord. Mother Watson, the first woman to serve as the executive director at the Detroit NAACP, former Detroit City Council member, and former delegate to the 2001 United Nations World Conference on Racism, laid the blueprint for fighting on all fronts for equality and freedom. There are so many elected officials, leaders, advocates, pastors, business professionals, and community leaders that are who they are because Mother Watson was who she was, present company included. So, Kevin, it looks like the African World Festival will be done in her honor this year. I mean, you know, I'm just going to go ahead and put that out there. Hopefully the suits and the powers that be at the African World Festival, you know, can make a strong pivot. Yeah. Kevin, this year's World Festival coincides with your 40th anniversary as an employee at the Wright. And I got to tell you this, Kevin, and I don't know if I told you this, but I for certain told Donna, I've done a lot of interviews even before I came into media. Some interviews are super memorable. Some of them I forget. But one of my most memorable and favorite interviews was interviewing you on American Black Journal about the King Tut exhibit and just your overall experience at the Wright. So 40 years, we're doubling up. How are you feeling about your place at the Wright and the place and the institutionalization of this festival?
You know, it's been an incredible, extraordinary journey, you know, starting with the museum in 1983 with the festival and watching, you know, the museum grow and go through, you know, these various iterations from, you know, three-row house on the boulevard to, you know, what was the largest African-American museum in the country, now second largest, and then watch the festival grow along with the institution. And I really understood the scale of it when I was in the Keys one year, and I was there on business to survey and exhibit, and they had a festival there called the Goombay Festival. And these people just started running up to me because I managed the marketplace for like 10 years after I ran the festival in 96. And they were trying to get information on our festival, you know, when they found out I was from the museum and from Detroit. and they referred to it as the granddaddy of festivals.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds
and
like
this is on the
Small
keys,
Life was
right?
saying.
So can you talk about how this festival coincided with your first year at the museum? What was the overlapping kind of activity taking place?
The third exhibit I worked on at the museum, following a voting rights exhibit and an exhibit on Charles Drew, was an exhibit that featured all of the museum's collections, or quite a few pieces from the museum's collections, taken downtown, and I created an exhibit in what was the cultural gallery down there. And I worked about 6 months on that exhibit, creating these maps and preparing all of the artwork to go down there, and mounts and panels, and it was a beautiful exhibit. And I was kind of suited for it because I worked for the Detroit Council of the Arts for about a year or so, and that was my job, was to go down there and help the different ethnic groups to put on their exhibits in that gallery. So I kind of went all out on hours when I had that opportunity to do it for the festival.
So what were you doing also in that year, 1983? You were still in college, right?
Still in college, 83. And I was, really, also handling all of the collateral material. So I was designing a lot of print, working with Carl Owens on that iconic poster, The Man in the Mask. He'd invite me to the studio, and we'd exchange ideas and all of that while he was working on that.
Don't be modest about that. Let's spend some time there, because I think that that poster, that visual is iconic.
It is.
And it is synonymous with the festival. And you are saying to our listeners that you had a hand.
Oh yeah.
Man, what, Kevin? The modesty, man. Jeez. And talk a little bit about your relationship with Dr. Wright, and how he sort of saw this festival and envisioned this festival and its growth.
It was I think it was a perfect pairing, of the museum and this festival and the city of Detroit. The city approached Dr. Wright and the museum's administration there about doing this festival. And basically what we did was we took what was a art, I don't know if you could really call it a festival, but it's kind of a festival in a sense, because all of Detroit artists came together and displayed their wares, put their tents up, and it was all running up and down Washington Boulevard.
Okay.
It was like art fair. That's really what it was, an art fair. And so it was there in 82, and everybody participated, including myself, in 82. And basically, we pulled those artists out and said, hey, we're getting ready to do this festival on Hart Plaza. Bring your stuff. And so what you see as the artist, not the artist market, but the marketplace now, had its beginning with Detroit artists brought in from that Washington Boulevard art fair, that was being put on. Yeah.
So talk about this year. What can people expect? I am a member of the Wright, so I get in free.
That's right.
Hey,
That's right. You get your membership.
Right, you
make sure you
get
the membership. You can load that on your phone. You get your membership card on the phone, and you have that code, a bar that we scan there on the plaza, and you get right on in. But outside of that, it's $15 for those who are 13 and older, and those under 13 come in for free. And there's a bike valet, and we've got Watoto Village, and of course George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic.
Oh, look at Donna. I wish I could see Donna in the studio.
Headliner on Friday.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Is that who we play? Who do we so
Yes, that's who we played.
Who we played.
Yes.
So during our photo shoot for our cover art, right? We were like, okay, we're gonna do this photo shoot, and we needed to loosen up because we were just
I
kind
am
of like
very stiff when taking pictures.
I tried to say we. I tried to include myself, but it was
me.
Donna. We played some George Clinton Parliament, and that's how we got those iconic photos.
That's right.
Oh,
That's right.
man.
So,
Yeah. And you know what? You know, the thing that I look forward to most about the African World Festival are the food vendors.
Oh my goodness, the food is awesome. I have a couple questions about parking, and whether or not, I know last year if you worked for or you attended Detroit Public Schools, you were able to get in free. Is that going to be repeated this year?
I'm not sure if that's going to be the case this year. I haven't heard anything about.
Okay, and where should people park? Because that's one of the complaints people have. I was
downtown
so excited. We were
and
going back to Hart Plaza. I felt like it's supposed to be on Hart Plaza.
Yeah. It's not.
And
It's a
listening to
non-conversation
some of
this
these-
year.
It is, but listening to some of these Detroiters complain, like, oh, it's hard to park downtown. What are your recommendations?
There's a lot right there adjacent to Hart Plaza, right in the middle of Jefferson Avenue, that has parking, and that's generally where I park.
That you're talking about the 4 parking lot.
Yeah. And that's the closest one. And, just like any other event that goes on downtown, parking is always going to be an issue. So I would suggest, doing a little bit of research in advance and identifying lots, that are reasonably priced and just try to work that out.
Or if you know me and know where I live, come on by and we can walk on over because I walked to the festival last year.
Yeah, I'll be walking this year. Or riding. Actually, I'm riding my bike. I'm really excited, but not when I'm wearing this outfit and I'm in a dress. But also, the queue line is free, right? Our tax dollars pay for the queue line. And if you can find a place to park outside of downtown, you can roll on in there free of charge along Woodward, assuming it's working. And
it's working.
On that day. And get in there without really having to pay a whole lot. So we don't have to park downtown.
That's right.
And if you can find nice places to put your car, some people along the way, or you can find a street and you can just spend using the Detroit app, the dollars or however many dollars we have to spend on parking. There's other ways to do it. But I think there's a value. I always like to say it's our downtown.
Right.
Let's claim it. I'm not conceding that space. We deserve to be there. And it's the least expensive festival I know of downtown on Hart Plaza. Is that the truth?
Because we ain't mad at movement.
Right.
Ooh-wee. I am.
Right.
but that's another thing. I feel like the festival should be affordable to Detroiters, and I know that $15 is not affordable to anybody, but how would somebody become a member so they could just bypass all of that?
You can go to the museum's website, and you can actually go ahead and process and pay for your membership there. And, they will send you your electronic card that you can use. You can also come to the museum and take out a membership there. Just come right on into the lobby under the dome and pay for your membership, and you can get it that way as well. But it's a great bargain because you pay your $25 and you have access to the museum all year long.
And there's some
special events, and you get notifications of what's going on and discounts at the museum store and online and all of that, and get in the festival for free.
And how much is a membership?
$25.
$25 for all of that.
Yes.
Now, in addition to the festival, there's a whole lot going on in the museum this year that people may want to check out. Can you talk about any of that?
Right now, we have an exhibit on the Green Book. And I know that some of you have probably, seen the movie. It is not that.
I have not.
Because the movie is about, this white guy driving a black guy throughout the South, this piano player, but, the whole idea behind the Green Book is lost there. And, it's basically a book that was produced by African Americans that listed all of those locations that hotels and restaurants and places that you could stay and be entertained in this book. So as you travel throughout the country, from the north to the south, or wherever you're going, you take this Green Book with you because, you're not able to pull into this restaurant that says, whites only, or you use a restroom that says whites only, because of racism and segregation, not just in the South, but in the North. So that was the importance of it. So we've produced an exhibit around that. And there's another exhibit by an artist. His name is Derek Adams. And he created an exhibit based upon the Green Book that's at the museum. It's a fine art exhibit featuring his interpretation of the experience of traveling through the country and dealing with discrimination and working around that using the Green Book. So come out and check that out. Now, also, we've got some exhibits opening in the fall. One is dealing with Afro futurism, and I think that's going to be really exciting.
That was
exhibit.
actually my next question to you. It was about Afrofuturism. I'm holding the theme in my hand. Exchanging stories of honoring where we've been and where we're going. Representing our community and our shared past, present, and future. And I want you to talk a little bit about the future. And how, the festival is an impetus for Black folks to come together and envision and dream about what we want our future to look like.
That's really our theme this year for the festival. It's focused on Afrofuturism, and it's kind of a running theme this year at Festival On, because we're going to be featuring the costumes of Ruth Carter. And she
Academy Award winning Ruth Carter.
Exactly.
Two-time Academy Award winning?
I think so, yeah.
I think she won twice. Yeah. So, we'll be featuring all of those, not all of them, but quite a few costumes from the Black Panther exhibit. I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker, and also The Help, and all of these different films that she worked on providing the costumes for. And so, but the centerpiece for that is going to be the Black Panther costuming, and with the idea of Afrofuturism.
Right. I want to talk a little bit about Afrofuturism.
4-time Academy Award winning.
Thank you.
Ruth Carter.
Thank you.
I think it's important because I didn't really understand what Afrofuturism was. So I want to just spend a moment on that. That it's, Wikipedia says it's a cultural aesthetic philosophy of science and history that explores the intersection of the African diaspora culture with science and technology. It addresses themes and concerns of the African diaspora through technoculture and speculative fiction, encompassing a range of media and artists with a shared interest in envisioning Black futures that stem from Afro-diasporic experiences. So it's not realistic. The thing about futuristic is that it allows us to imagine ourselves powerful, imagine ourselves whole, imagine ourselves, really functioning in this world differently. And, you can't really change anything until you can imagine yourself being different. So I love Afrofuturism for that reason. I mean, Black Panther, when we talk about Wakanda, we didn't ever think about Wakanda as a possibility that we would have this much power, that we would come together in this international way. Absolutely. And there's a lot of criticisms of Black Panther. I'm not here for it because it really does.
None of it. Listen, and I mean that. I mean that.
Yes, we all do the Wakanda salute now. That's right. And it brings us this sense of pride, and children are born imagining ourselves great. When we were kids, not you, Orlando, when Kevin and I were kids, right? We had the Jetsons, and that was futurism. Right. This was, and almost everything that was in the Jetsons came true. Imagine if we get so future focused and we imagine these wonderful things, and in a generation from now, those things also become true because we imagined we could be there.
Yeah, I think it's appropriate to call some names in Detroit who has been really leading the way in Afrofuturism in the person of Ingrid LaFleur and
absolutely
Bryce Detroit, whom we've had on this show to talk about Afrofuturism. Lauren Hood, so Sidney James, so many amazing people who is helping to shape and change our vocabulary and lexicon in the city of Detroit when we talk about Afrofutures.
Absolutely. And when anybody who reads the books by Octavia Butler, or one of my favorites, Tananarive Due, these are Afrofuturists.
Or if you watch Lovecraft Country.
Lovecraft Country. Exactly. These are all part of this whole genre that is underexplored. So I'm really excited about that. I want to spend a moment just talking about what we love about the festival, because we all have our different experiences and things that we get out of the festival. First of all, I have to say I love it being at Hart Plaza because it's so spread out, right? And you have these different stages that have the space, but I absolutely love the marketplace.
I was going to say the same thing. I love shopping.
Oh, I love the shopping. I love looking at people who are wearing all of this different, I'm going to do it this year, all this different African garb. I just love that. I love buying things for the home and jewelry and stuff like that. It just feels like you're in this, feel like you're in Wakanda when you're there.
You do.
There's this pride that you connect. Can you talk a little bit about how the festival has evolved over time and whether that's always been the case that you've had that feeling?
Well, I can tell you that we're going to have about 125 vendors on the marketplace this year.
Wow.
And it has varied. When I ran the festival in 96, I had about 175 vendors out there. And oh my God, just, it really does bring to mind and the feeling of an African marketplace when you're there, because there are so many who come over from the continent, or they're here and they're, trading and bringing goods. And many of them, this is the make or break festival for them. It's breaking even or making a profit, so it's major. But the spirit of it is just, it's been going on since the beginning. And, for me, that's my favorite part. And I managed that marketplace for about 10 years.
That's why I always get free things from the folks when they see me with you. Right?
Well, Kevin, I'm going to find you. My brother. I'm going to find you, Kevin. I'm going to find you to walk around with you. That sounds like a plan, because I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there for certain. I don't miss it. Yeah. That, it's so cool. And I think, creating these kinds of events that just affirm all of who we are, right, in a big, loud way is so dope. I mean, we talk about movement, and we know that, Black people invented techno and house music, but we're clawing for that recognition in the Movement Festival. This festival here, it's for us, by us.
That's right.
It's all
through
of us.
And through.
It's all of us. Just like us, on Sunday you're gonna get your gospel performances. On Friday
that's
you're gonna
what's
get
gonna
whatever.
Happen.
Saturday you're gonna get the dance troops. You're gonna get dance lessons. You're going to get so many ways. And I do want to talk about, because you were really successful in helping to run the festival and certainly running the marketplace. But this year, as in the recent past, Njia Kai is the person who is running the festival.
We love you, Njia.
We do. Can
Mama Njia,
Mama Njia, can you speak about her role and how
she's
significant
amazing.
that is?
Well, and Gia runs festivals and events all over the city, and so
'Cause she's a boss.
She is, and she has been involved in running our festival. Wow, I think
off and on for almost 20 years.
A long time. I think
time.
Maybe a couple of years after I ran it, she came in, so it would have been around 98 or something like that. But she's been the spirit. You know what I mean? And running all different aspects of it and bringing the culture in and making sure it's rich and that it's educational and, that it's even some of those years when the budget was real thin, and Gia was pulling it off, and, there have been those occasions when, she's had to kind of go off and come back and then people bring her back and they bring other people to run this thing. And then ultimately they got to bring in Gia to get it right,
And then we mean that.
Yeah.
So we mean that.
Powerful, man.
Shout out
she
to my
has
man, Gia.
just done a wonderful job over the years. And so we're glad to have her at the center of it this year.
All right, give the people a rundown. We were behind time, but it's okay. Give people a rundown. How, once again, how can people purchase tickets? How can people become members? Where it's going to be? You can be out there all day. Yeah, tell everybody one more time.
Well, it's down on Hart Plaza this weekend, 14th through the 16th. And, again, starting off with George Clinton, Parliament Funkadelic on Friday. And I don't have the full schedule here. That's our headliner right there.
We mean that.
But we've got the Watoto Village, that's designed for kids, and there's, a stage there and programming going on. We'll have the pyramid stage and the main stage all weekend long. So different. I think it's called Gen X over there. Where the pyramid stage is, so it's really kind of geared to the younger folks.
That's where
there.
You can get your DJs over there,
right, party going on,
Right.
But that will be going on all weekend. We have, as Donna mentioned, we'll have these dancers performing, and of course, the gospel is a mainstay for us
always
on Sunday.
Let the church say amen.
Amen. So it's as always top-notch performers on Sunday. That's pulled in from the gospel entertainment world, and again it's $15. To get into the festival. For those who are 13 and up, and then those under 13 get in for free.
Can I ask
Sure.
a question about that? Now, when you are a member, that's $25 per person. But if you have a 15-year-old, is there a youth membership that's a different rate than $25?
There is a youth membership that we have that's like $5.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's $5
Yeah.
for a 15-year-old, nothing for younger children. And so if you have your membership and you get your young people's memberships, then you're going to be okay, right?
Yeah.
Suffice it to say that this festival is very affordable, and if you have problems coming up with the money, call one of us. We'll pay for you.
Seriously,
I'm serious.
Call Eastside
right.
Community Network.
Because
We want to see you down
we wanna
there.
see you
We
there.
don't want to see people. I'll just have to beg a funder to help us pay for this, but
That's
I'm going to
wonderful.
make this promise, right?
Thank you.
That we really want to see people there. We don't want people to have excuses not to come. This is our downtown festival.
This is
Detroit is
ours.
still, 78% black? So we need to be downtown in Hart Plaza, in the center of the city, right by the gateway to freedom.
That's right.
Celebrating our culture.
That's our history there, right there.
We spend so much time
Near the
debating.
MLK statue.
Yes. The
The new.
MLK statue.
Yes.
Ooh, I can't wait to see that reveal.
Right. Yeah.
We need to spend as much time celebrating as we do commiserating. We have to remember all the great things about us that we love about us, so that when we hit hard times, like we lose somebody who's become an ancestor,
Yes.
a beautiful person like
That's
JoAnn
right.
Watson.
That's right.
When we lose a 2-year-old girl who deserved the right to
Yes.
grow up, and we
Right.
have a mother lose a daughter, and a little boy lose a sister and his father's done this. When that happens, we also need to remember to come together to celebrate so that we cannot be defined by tragedy. When we're defined by tragedy, that's also part of hopelessness, right?
Right.
In my Afrofuturistic future, we're going to be celebrating. And so I look forward to celebrating.
And that's what African World Festival is. It's a celebration of us, our culture. It's a celebration of who we are. It's a celebration of our past, our present, and our future. So,
all right, there you have it.
Oh, I do want to add that college students, you want to make sure you have your ID and all of that, but college students get in for $10.
We love it.
Yep.
All right. If you have any topics or headlines that you want discussed on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on our socials at Authentically Detroit on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or you can email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. It is time for shout outs. I hope Donna and Kevin have shout outs. I got a couple shout outs. Number one, happy birthday, Grandma. Number two, I just want to shout out Keke Palmer for wearing that dress to the Usher concert. Thank you so much. That's it. Go ahead, Donna.
I want to shout out Keke Palmer for how she responded to that man. Okay, because Keke Palmer, she is. And I said this on Facebook. When somebody in the Black community, when somebody grows up as a child star, they're all of ours. Okay, so when you come for them,
she belongs to us.
You think
that's right.
The beehive is bad.
Right.
The Black hive, we'll all come at you. Okay,
I had to do the Keke Palmer, and I said, I hope I don't sound ridiculous, but I don't know who this man is.
Exactly. Still don't know who he is. He knew he wasn't on her level. Sometimes you just have to hide. But no. I do want to. I want to shout out Ngia. I want to shout out the museum. Yeah. I'm super excited about what's happening this weekend. I also want to shout out the staff team at ECN. We have our first annual golf outing on Thursday. And I think we actually have golfers. Yay, it's heard. So many golf outings, but I think it's going to be a good day. We're going to make a little bit of money, and we're going to celebrate and highlight Chandler Park Golf Course, which is our golf course in the community. So I'm really excited about this whole week from Thursday to Sunday. I'm going to be partying, right?
That's right.
All right.
Yeah. I want to shout, I want to shout out JoAnn Watson, and all that she meant to us, and how she's really been the fabric of our Black lives, living here in the city of Detroit, and how she has been such a tremendous living example for us, and she'll be missed.
Yeah, she will. Again, her radio show, when she began, Wake Up Detroit, she was waking us up before woke became a bad word, right? And so many ways a trailblazer. She was working on the water crisis before we even knew that it was going to be this bad.
That's right.
Helping to put in place legislation. She was involved in environmental justice, writing some of the original environmental justice work that Ben Chavis ended up bringing to the NAACP. JoAnn Watson was always ahead of her time. She was a person who understood the risk of a land bank. When I thought it would make it easier for us to get development in the community, she's the person. That's what I was arguing with her about. And she was right, that there were risks that we had not looked at, that it would created an opportunity to bypass city council and bypass democracy. And she could see what many of us, including me, especially me, could not. And so I appreciate people who, speaking of Afrofuturistic, somebody with a vision, somebody who would bring Africa to Detroit, take us and help connect us to the diaspora in the way that she spoke, in the way that she dressed, and the values that she expressed. And I also want to remember that she was the Reverend JoAnn Watson. She was a pastor. In addition to a politician, a radio host, an activist, she was also a pastor who brought people faith in the future. And so in that spirit, I can't think of she was one of a kind.
Yes,
absolutely. And I'm glad to have known her. To have worked with her, to have been mentored by her. And
we do this episode in honor of you, Reverend JoAnn Watson. Yes. We love you, and we are forever grateful. And until next time, everybody, we want you to catch the wave.